My heels clicked nervously on the polished floor as I walked into the old banquet hall, the one the school rented out every 5 years for our high school reunion. Lights twinkled across the room like little judgments, catching in the wine glasses and bouncing off the sequin dresses. I took a deep breath, clutching my clutch tighter than I meant to. I hadn't seen most of these people in a decade. I thought I was ready. I told myself I had healed, that I wasn't that girl anymore, the quiet one, the shadow at the edge of the hallway, the girl who tried too hard to be liked and never quite made it in. I thought I'd buried her. Then I saw him, Blake Parker. He hadn't changed. That same sharp jawline, hair still perfectly disheveled like he paid someone to make it look accidental, and that smirk. God, that smirk. My stomach knotted, but I straightened my spine. I had come here to prove, to myself, not anyone else, that I could face them. I could be in the room. I could own the room. Alyssa? A familiar voice chirped behind me. I turned to see Brittany Cross, now Brittany Miller, approaching, her champagne glass half full, eyes wide with that glossy, overdone friendliness. "Oh my gosh, it's you. Look at you, you look so different," she said, her smile freezing slightly at the end. "In a good way." "Thanks," I replied with a small nod, knowing damn well the pause was louder than the compliment. "So, what do you do now?" she asked, barely masking her eagerness. "I run my own design firm now," I said, trying to sound casual. "We're based in Chicago, but we just expanded to New York." Her eyebrows arched a little too high. "Wow, that's impressive." Then she leaned in just a little and said it with a gleam of curiosity. "Do you still talk to Blake? He's here, you know." I shrugged. "No, not really." And then, as if I'd summoned him, there he was, walking up behind her with his arms slung lazily around a drink, eyes scanning the room like he owned it. And when his gaze landed on me, something flickered in his expression. Recognition. Maybe a little surprise. "Blake." Brittany beamed, reaching out to him. "Look who's here." He looked me up and down, slow. Not creepy. Just clinical. Like he was trying to figure out who I was. "Alyssa Morgan," he finally said, swirling the ice in his glass. "Didn't expect you to show." "Why wouldn't I?" I asked, holding his gaze. He tilted his head. "I dunno. You always said these things weren't your scene." I forced a smile. "Maybe I changed." He chuckled softly. "Changed, huh?" And then it came. That one sentence that sliced right through the air, right through my spine. "Well, good for you," he said. "But, you were never really good enough to hang with this crowd." He said it so lightly, so smoothly, like he was saying something casual, honest, helpful. Brittany's smile twitched awkwardly. I froze. Not because I was shocked that he said something like that, but because I wasn't ready for how much it still hurt. I could feel eyes nearby. People heard, or sensed, or assumed. I didn't know. I couldn't even look around. I swallowed. "Excuse me," I murmured, backing away before I gave them the satisfaction of seeing my face crumple. I didn't cry. Not there. I found the hallway bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the cold marble counter, letting the silence hold me. I looked in the mirror. The makeup, the sleek black dress, the strong woman I had spent years becoming. And still one sentence from him had the power to pull me back into a dark hallway in high school where he and his friends laughed as I walked past with my science project. "You're not good enough." It echoed louder in the silence. That was the moment. Not the moment I broke. No. The moment something unlocked. Because this time I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I didn't go home and shrink myself. I stood there, breathing, heart pounding, realizing something that surprised me. He didn't even know me anymore. He hadn't seen my life, my journey, my wins, my losses, my growth. He was still stuck in a version of me that no longer existed. He told me I wasn't good enough, and he meant it. But that was about him, not me. I exhaled slowly, wiped under my eyes, even though no tears had fallen. And I walked out of that bathroom with one thought echoing through me now, not his voice. Mine. "I'm going to prove you wrong." But not for you, for me. People always assume the deepest wounds come from romantic heartbreak. But the truth is, for me, the sharpest aches didn't come from someone I dated. They came from people I grew up with. From family members who loved me conditionally. From classmates who laughed as they overlooked me. From teachers who praised others for work I quietly helped with. From friends who only kept me around because I was convenient. And at home, well, that wasn't any better. Growing up in a small town outside of Madison, Wisconsin, I lived in a two-story home with beige siding, a brown shingled roof, and love that only showed up on report card days. My parents, Mark and Diane Morgan, loved my older brother, Ethan, like he was the second coming of Einstein. Ethan played football, got decent grades, and had that loud, golden boy charisma that filled a room. I, on the other hand, preferred art, stayed quiet in crowds, and had to fight to get a word in during dinner conversations. While Ethan's room was filled with trophies, mine had watercolor paintings taped to the wall with peeling masking tape. When I was 11, I remember winning a regional art competition. It was a big deal to me. I'd worked for weeks on a watercolor portrait of my grandmother's hands knitting. The school called to say I'd placed first in my age category and would be featured in a local magazine. That night, when I rushed home to share the news, Mom was in the kitchen making lasagna and Ethan was sitting at the counter bragging about scoring 2 touchdowns in practice. "That's nice, sweetie," my mom had said without looking up. "Can you set the table?" That was it. That was all. No frame. No magnet on the fridge. Just silence. And lasagna. But when Ethan made the honor roll in junior year, even though I had a 4.0 for 3 straight semesters, Mom posted about it on Facebook like he'd been accepted into NASA. The message became clear. If you don't shine the way we like, we won't see you at all. I became a master of invisibility. Helpful? Yes. Obedient? Always. Loud? Never. At school, I tried to find my place among the cliques that defined our narrow world. But I was too artsy for the popular girls, too average-looking for the boys to notice, and too normal to belong to the drama kids or the rebels. I existed in the in-between. And somehow, Blake Parker lived in the center of every circle. He was charming. The kind of guy who made teachers chuckle even when he didn't turn in homework. His jokes hit. His winks made girls blush. And for some reason, he noticed me. But not in the way I'd wanted. He once called me background music in front of everyone at lunch. Said I was the kind of girl who brings granola to prom. People laughed. I pretended not to hear. But I remembered. Every word. Because it wasn't just Blake. It was the chorus of voices around him. The way people laughed louder when he spoke. The way they looked at me only when he pointed me out. Rejection didn't come in one big moment. It came in small, silent ways. Birthday parties I wasn't invited to, group projects where I ended up doing all the work but my name was left off the presentation, invitations that went missing, glances that slid past me like I wasn't there. I used to think something was wrong with me. That if I just tried harder, lost a little weight, spoke more confidently, changed my handwriting, curled my hair, I'd finally be seen. But I was wrong. Because when people have already decided who you are, it doesn't matter how brightly you shine. They won't look. I graduated high school with honors, awards no one cared about, and a secret. I was going to leave and never look back. Chicago was my escape hatch. I applied to design school without telling anyone in my family until after I was accepted. When I moved into my dorm, my parents didn't come help. Ethan had a football game that weekend. That was the moment I realized I could do everything right and still be forgettable to the people who should have loved me most. So I stopped living for them. I learned how to live for myself. But healing isn't linear. No matter how many degrees you get or clients you sign, there's always a part of you that remembers the girl you were when they didn't clap for you. The rest of the night at the reunion moved around me like I wasn't really there. People danced, laughed, posed for pictures with cheap photo booth props while I sat in a corner with a half-sipped glass of Cabernet and a swirl of thoughts. Blake's words still echoed. You were never really good enough to hang with this crowd. How could he say that like it was nothing? Like all those years of humiliation weren't enough. He needed one last shot to reassert where he thought I belonged. Beneath him. I could have left right then, and I almost did, but I stayed. Not because I wanted to prove anything to him, but because leaving would have meant giving him power again. I didn't want to relive that same old narrative. Quiet girl runs, popular guy wins.
No.
I stayed. I made small talk with classmates who'd barely remember my name in school. Some had softened over time. Most hadn't. They still had that high school royalty air, like they hadn't noticed 10 years had passed, and the world had stopped orbiting around them. Around 10 p.m., the lights dimmed. A makeshift stage had been set up near the back wall, where the reunion committee wanted to do a highlight moment and give out awards, funny things like most changed, most kids, still looks 18, and, of course, most successful. I didn't even think about it. Why would I? I wasn't even sure half of them remembered what I did for a living. But when they read out the nominations, my name was among them. I looked up in surprise. My stomach turned. My cheeks flushed. The committee chair, Melissa, one of the few girls who'd always been nice to me in school, read off a small card with a smile. And finally, voted by classmates through our reunion Facebook page, the award for most successful goes to Alyssa Morgan. There was a pause. It felt like the room took a collective inhale. I stood slowly, confused, then heard light clapping. Some polite, some genuine. And then, through the scattered applause, I caught it. Laughter.
Low.
Under his breath.
Blake.
He was sitting at the bar, arms crossed, drink in hand, and he was laughing, shaking his head. And he said, loud enough for the people around him to hear, "Guess running an Etsy store counts as success these days." And they laughed. They laughed. I froze halfway to the stage. My mouth went dry. My chest tightened with that old, familiar shame. Like I was 16 again. In the cafeteria. With a tray in my hand, and no one saving me a seat. Melissa's smile faltered when she saw me hesitate. She motioned gently, encouraging me up. But I turned around. I couldn't. I walked out of the room, head down, past the DJ booth, past the coat check, out into the cool night air. I stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed over my chest, feeling the weight of everything I thought I'd left behind. Blake still saw me as that girl. And worse, he still had the power to make others see me that way too. I thought I had moved on, but how easily I'd been dragged back. That was when my phone buzzed. A text. From my mom. I stared at the screen in disbelief.
Mom.
Ethan said you made a scene at the reunion? What happened? This is why we told you these events aren't your thing, it just causes drama. I stared at the message for a long time. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask what really happened. Just believed Ethan, who wasn't even there, blamed me. Like always. That moment, between Blake's laughter and my mother's message, felt like a cruel twist of déjà vu. A reminder that no matter how far I ran, rejection had a way of following me home. But then something inside me began to shift. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was a quiet, sharp clarity. I wasn't the same Alyssa anymore. I had changed.
Grown.
Fought for every inch of my voice. And maybe this moment wasn't a setback. Maybe it was the last time I'd ever let them tell me who I was. I didn't respond to my mom's text. Not the next morning. Not the next week. Not even when she sent a follow-up message 2 days later that read, "Still waiting for an explanation. You can't just go silent." But that's exactly what I did. I went silent. For the first time in my life. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I didn't apologize for making people uncomfortable. I just disappeared. Quietly. On purpose. And it felt like a warm, steady exhale I'd been holding in for 2 decades. I deleted Ethan's number. Blocked Blake on social media. Turned off notifications for the class reunion group. I even stopped liking or commenting on my parents' Facebook posts, not to punish, but to reclaim my peace. For years, I'd been taught to always show up, to be the bigger person, to smile through it, to stay connected, even when the wires had long since frayed. But this time, I chose distance over dignity battles. No one noticed at first. That's the thing about being invisible for most of your life. Your absence rarely causes alarm. But it wasn't just about disconnecting from people. It was about reconnecting with myself. I started pouring more into my design business. I revamped my studio space, bought new supplies, and started saying no to projects that didn't align with my soul. I wasn't just working, I was building something sacred. And people noticed. Strangers, mostly. Clients. Collaborators. Fellow artists who stumbled across my portfolio and asked if I did mentorships or workshops. They didn't know me from high school. They didn't know me as Ethan's little sister. They just saw the work, the art, the vision, and they respected it. My silence wasn't just freedom, it was fertile ground. I hosted my first solo gallery show that winter. It was small, intimate, but deeply personal. I curated pieces that told stories of invisibility, rejection, and renewal. I didn't tell my family, didn't invite anyone from the past. That night, standing in a room full of people who chose to be there, not because of blood or nostalgia or small-town gossip, but because of the energy I poured into my work, I felt something shift. I was no longer waiting for them to clap for me. I was clapping for myself. One evening, weeks after the gallery show, I got an email. It was short, from someone I didn't recognize. Subject: I saw your art in the paper. Hi, Alyssa. I don't know if you remember me. We weren't close in high school. But I read the piece about your gallery in the Chicago Weekly and wanted to say thank you. Your painting, The Quiet Girl's Armor, moved me to tears. That used to be me. I just never had the words for it. Thank you for giving it a voice. Heather C. I read that email 3 times. And then I cried. Not out of sadness, but from a quiet, overwhelming gratitude. Because in pulling away from the people who never saw me, I was finally being seen by those who mattered. No explanations. No arguments. No performances. Just space. And in that space, I bloomed. It started with a ping. Then a message request on Instagram from a name I hadn't heard in years. Sophie Delgado. I blinked twice before it registered. Sophie had been in our graduating class, but she wasn't part of Blake's clique or the high school drama circles. We had a few classes together, but she was quiet, more of a background presence. I remembered her most from senior year art class, where she'd sketch small cartoon characters in the margins of her notebooks and rarely raised her hand. Her message read, Hey Alyssa, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I was at your gallery show a few weeks ago. I didn't say hi because I wasn't sure you'd remember me, but I've been thinking about your work ever since. I stared at the screen. The gallery wasn't advertised widely. Mostly local art networks. I hadn't posted about it to my personal Facebook at all. Only my business account and some Instagram reels. She continued, Your piece, The Sound of Being Ignored, hit me the hardest. I remember watching you back in high school and wondering how you stayed so calm. You were always getting dismissed or overlooked and still showed up. I wanted to be like you, honestly. Anyway, thank you. Your work says the things I couldn't say. Just wanted you to know that someone noticed. Even back then. I just sat there, my phone warm in my hands, heart beating too loud. Someone noticed. Someone had always noticed. I never would have guessed it would be Sophie Delgado, the girl I barely spoke to, who had once dropped her pen and whispered sorry, like she was apologizing for existing. I wrote back, I remember you. Your notebook sketches were amazing. I always thought you should have submitted one for the senior art wall. She replied instantly, I didn't think I was good enough. But you did, and look at you now. That message hit deeper than I expected, because I had spent so many years believing I wasn't good enough either. Yet here we were, 2 quiet girls from the shadows of high school, finding connection through courage and creation. It didn't stop there. A few days later, Sophie tagged me in a post. A selfie of her holding a framed print of one of my pieces. The caption read, To the girl who reminded me it's okay to take up space. Thank you, at Alyssa Morgan Art. And then came the comments. People asking where she got the print. Others tagging friends. One woman wrote, Wait, is this the same Alyssa Morgan from Eisenridge High? She's the one who organized the hurricane supply drive senior year, right? That changed our whole town. I still remember it.
I had forgotten about that.
because no one back then had really acknowledged it. The principal thanked the school as a whole. Blake had hijacked the credit in the yearbook by posing in a photo with a box of canned goods. But now, years later, the truth was emerging. People were finally seeing me for who I really was. Not the quiet girl. Not the shadow behind her brother. Not the weirdo Blake humiliated at the reunion. But a creator. A force. A soul who mattered. And the irony? The people who had tried so hard to make me invisible were now watching others celebrate me, loudly, publicly, unapologetically. It didn't take long before the silence started bothering them more than it ever bothered me. At first, it came in subtle waves, texts from my mom that tried to sound casual but carried that unmistakable weight. "Hey sweetie, haven't heard from you in a while. Hope everything's okay." Then, "I just want us all to be together again. Maybe we can talk." I ignored them, not out of anger, but because I could finally hear the difference between love and manipulation. They weren't reaching out because they were ready to take accountability. They were reaching out because the silence had become inconvenient. But when my gallery post went semi-viral after Sophie's tag, things escalated. People were commenting, sharing, even screenshotting parts of my captions about reclaiming your voice. My follower count doubled in 2 weeks. I was invited to speak on a podcast about art and healing. That's when the real damage control began. One morning, I opened my email to find a message from Blake. Subject: misunderstanding. Asterisk: Hey Alyssa. I've been thinking about the reunion, and I wanted to apologize if anything I said hurt you. Things got a little out of hand. I was just joking, you know? It's how we always talk back in high school. I didn't mean anything by it. Anyway, I saw your art is doing well. That's awesome. Maybe we can catch up sometime. Let's reset. Asterisk. B. Asterisk.
No.
Absolutely not. That wasn't an apology. That was a spin job. He didn't say, "I was wrong." He said, "You took it wrong." He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry people saw it. A few days later, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was clipped and formal. "Hi, honey. I know things have been a little tense lately. I saw Blake's trying to make things right. Maybe you could talk to him?"
He meant well.
"We all just want to move forward." Forward? Funny how now they wanted forward. When I was begging for basic respect, they left me behind. But now that I was being celebrated without them, suddenly, moving forward included me. I didn't respond. Not even when my dad sent a message saying, you know we're proud of you, right?"
No.
They were proud of the attention, not the journey. They hadn't supported the years I spent rebuilding myself in the dark. They hadn't called when I was scraping by, working 3 jobs to fund my art. They hadn't believed in me when I was invisible. So why should they get to stand beside me now that the lights had come on? A few days later, Sophie forwarded me a screenshot from someone who had commented under one of her posts. "Is this the same Alyssa who made a scene at the reunion?" Crazy how people twist stories for clout. No name attached. But I could guess. The pushback wasn't surprising. What shocked me was how little it affected me. I didn't cry. I didn't feel like explaining. Instead, I blocked. Breathed. Posted a new photo of my latest painting. Underneath it, I wrote, "Sometimes the silence they fear the most is the one where you finally find yourself." That post became my most shared. And not one member of my family commented. Good. Let the silence speak now. The message came at 2:17 a.m. I was up, working late on a new piece, when I saw the notification light up my phone. It was from Sophie again. This time, it wasn't a casual thank you or update. It was a voice note. I hesitated before pressing play, expecting something short and sweet. But what I heard broke something open inside me. "Alyssa, I didn't want to send this as a text because I didn't think words on a screen could do it justice. I need you to hear this from my voice. I hope that's okay. You changed my life. Back in high school, I used to watch you walk through the halls with this quiet strength I didn't understand at the time. You didn't fight for attention. You didn't force yourself into the crowd. But you showed up every day like you belonged, even when they acted like you didn't. I remember seeing you volunteer at the hurricane relief drive. You were the one loading boxes into the trucks while Blake took all the credit and smiled for the photos.
I saw it.
A lot of us did. But we were too afraid to speak up. We thought if we stayed invisible, we wouldn't be targeted like you were. But you were never invisible. You were undeniable. And now, watching you succeed, seeing people recognize you, it feels like justice in motion. It feels like all those years of silence finally screamed into the world, and people are listening. I bought your painting for my mom, by the way. The one called She Didn't Disappear, She Chose Peace. My mom cried when she opened it. She said, "Whoever painted this, she understands me. I just want you to know, your art saved more than my wall. It saved pieces of me I thought were too small to matter." I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at nothing, just letting her words settle into the places that had ached for so long. I'd been chasing validation for years from the wrong people, from those who couldn't or wouldn't see me.
But here it was.
True validation. From someone who had nothing to gain. Someone who remembered my kindness even when I thought it had gone unnoticed. Someone who saw me not just as Blake's sister, or the quiet one, but as a force that had quietly shaped her world. That night, I didn't paint.
I didn't write.
I just lay in bed, eyes wide open, tears drying on my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from something deeper. Relief. Relief that I no longer had to fight for acknowledgement from people who were never going to give it. Because the right people were already finding me. People like Sophie. People like her mother. People who saw the real me, the quiet me, the resilient me, and said, "You mattered." Even then. Especially then. It was a Saturday morning when I heard a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peered through the peephole and froze. It was my mother. Behind her, just a few steps back, stood my father, hands tucked awkwardly in his coat pockets, his eyes fixed on the floor. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, heart pounding, hand hovering over the handle. Something inside me, the version of me who used to chase their approval, almost cracked. But the version of me who had rebuilt herself? She knew better. I opened the door slowly, but didn't step aside. "Alyssa," my mom said softly. Her voice trembled. "Can we come in?" I didn't move. "Please," she added. "We just want to talk." I looked at them both. Their faces wore a careful mix of concern and regret, but I could see through it. Not because I wanted to, but because I had finally learned to. "You can say what you need to say from right there," I replied, my voice calm. Steady. They hesitated. "We've been thinking about everything," she began. "We know things got messy, but we don't want to lose our daughter over a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. Still, even now, they were rewriting the story. Not, "We hurt you." Not, "We let others belittle you and stayed silent." Just a vague, dismissive, messy. My father spoke next. "Blake feels terrible, you know. He told us he was just being immature. He's ready to move on. We all are." I blinked slowly, then said, "That's nice for him." The silence between us hung heavy. "You've always been sensitive," my mom said gently, the edge returning to her tone. "And I know that's part of what makes you so talented. But sometimes you have to let things go." That did it. "I have let things go," I said. "I let go of pretending I was okay. I let go of shrinking myself so you could stay comfortable. I let go of trying to earn love that should have been unconditional." They looked startled, maybe even hurt, but I didn't back down. "I'm not angry anymore," I added. "I'm not looking for revenge. But I'm also not interested in rewriting the past so it feels neater for everyone else." A long pause followed. "So, what does this mean?" my dad finally asked. "It means," I said, "I'm done explaining myself." I took one breath. Then two. "And no, you can't come in." I stepped back, closed the door gently. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't second-guess myself. I didn't wonder if I was too harsh. I didn't wonder if I should have softened the blow. I just felt peace. Not the peace of reconciliation. The peace of knowing who I am and not needing anyone else to validate it. I used to think healing meant fixing things. Fixing relationships. Fixing misunderstandings. Fixing myself.
But now,
I realize healing isn't about fixing what broke you. It's about choosing not to bleed for people who kept handing you the knife. There was a time I would have done anything to be enough for them. I molded myself into their version of likable, good, easy. I swallowed my pain so I wouldn't make others uncomfortable. I bit my tongue so I wouldn't be labeled too emotional. And still, they said I wasn't good enough. So I stopped trying to be good enough for them. And I started becoming everything I needed to be for myself. To anyone watching this who's been told they're too much, too sensitive, too intense, I want you to hear me now. You're not too much. You're just too real for people who pretend. To anyone who's ever walked into a room where they once felt small and held their head high anyway, that is what healing looks like. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. Sometimes healing is quiet. It's the text you don't respond to, the door you don't open, the reunion you skip without guilt. Sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is,
no.
I'm done. If you're still waiting for an apology that may never come, let me say this. You deserved better. You were not overreacting. You were surviving. And you're allowed to let go of the people who made you question your worth in the first place. The version of me who stood outside that high school reunion, hearing Blake's words echo in her head, "You're not good enough," she's gone. In her place stands a woman who knows. I was never the problem. They just weren't ready to love someone who didn't need their permission to exist. So, to every soul who's ever been made to feel invisible, you matter. You've always mattered. And the right people will see it, no performance required. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You already did. You survived.
And now?
Now, it's your turn to be seen.